The tower of Pershore Abbey today rises majestically above the roofs of the market town of Pershore in the Vale of Evesham. It was to here that the bones of the Saxon saint Eadburgha were transported in the 10th century. Pilgrims flocked here to her shrine throughout the Middle Ages, and many miracles were reported, although throughout her lifetime she'd lived 100 miles away in Winchester. This is a tale of bones. St Eadburgha was the granddaughter of King Alfred the Great and was born around the year 921. At the age of 3, her father, Edward the Elder, King of Wessex, set her a little test. He set out 2 sets of objects. On one side there were various fancy toys and items of jewellery, rings and bracelets, that sort of thing. And on the other a chalice and paten, a gospel book and a nun's habit. With her sat on his knee, he explained she should choose either one or the other. When he set her down, she made straight for the religious items, and as a result she was dedicated to a Benedictine nunnery in Winchester, which had been founded by her grandmother, the widow of Alfred the Great. So while 2 of her brothers went on to become kings, Eadburgha lived a quiet and holy life as a nun. She performed a number of miracles and healings over the course of her life, but she was marked out by other things in the convent. At night, in secret, she would get up and wash the socks and clean the shoes of the other sisters. Depictions of her in art often show her in nun's habit washing clothes. She was caught out more than once doing this and chastised for doing a thing so unbecoming of her princess status. Another time the abbess found her reading alone, which was against the rules of the convent, and began to beat her. When she realised it was the princess and not an ordinary nun, she threw herself to the ground begging forgiveness. Eadburgha would often stay in the chapel after the divine office and pray on in private, and at first she was punished for such apparent idleness. Although again the abbess relented when she discovered that Eadburgha was the daughter of the king. She was known for her excellent singing ability, singing psalms, hymns and chants during divine office, and was made precentrix at Westminster Abbey, helping with the worship there. When her father the king visited the convent and she sang for him, in response he asked what he could do for her, and she asked for lands and money for the community. She went on leading the nuns in song and praise until she died of a fever, aged 30, and she was buried in an ordinary grave outside the monastery chapel. But the story doesn't end there. There was a window near her grave which was closed by a nun every night, but for 3 nights running, the nun was unable to close the window due to a pressure from outside. The sisters took this as a minor miracle and a sign the burial place was not appropriate for one so holy, and they translated the body to a tomb near the choir inside the church, where Eadburgha had spent so much of her life in prayer and song. But then Eadburgha appeared to the nuns in a dream and said she should be buried nearer the high altar, where she had often assisted during Mass. So her bones were duly moved once again to a tomb near the altar, and so the cult of Eadburgha began, and many miracles were attributed to her relics. Later, Ethelwald, Bishop of Winchester in the mid-900s, recognising there were miracles happening at her tomb, refounded the nunnery and once again had her bones moved from the tomb and placed in an ornate gilded shrine. In the year 972, the nephew of the abbess at the convent acquired Eadburgha's bones for £100, and they were transferred to Pershore Abbey, which had just been restored and refounded as part of a major programme of Benedictine reform under a royal charter. And here the miracles continued. The bones were kept in a dedicated chapel east of the south transept. That chapel was destroyed in the dissolution of the monasteries, but a few traces remain inside and outside the abbey. Inside the abbey you can see a blocked archway that used to lead to St Eadburgha's shrine. The abbey at Pershore went on to become one of the largest and wealthiest medieval abbeys in England. As a mark of her importance to the monks there, the 12th century seal of the abbey depicts St Eadburgha at its base, beneath the Virgin Mary, wearing a veil, a chalice in one hand and a gospel book in the other. The seal was used until the dissolution of the monasteries in the 16th century. There are a number of churches dedicated to St Eadburgha, most of them in an arc around Pershore. Although she never lived here, St Eadburgha has left her mark all over the Vale of Evesham. There is St Eadburgha in the village of Ebrington to the northeast of Pershore. Then there's St Eadburgha Broadway, also to the east. To the north of Pershore is St Eadburgha high up in the village of Abberton. And to the west, near Worcester in the village of Lye, another St Eadburgha, built originally by monks from Pershore in 1100. St Eadburgha continued to be a popular saint, judging by the number of biographies and lives written about her in the 12th, 13th and 14th centuries. St Eadburgha is commemorated in the abbey in Victorian stained glass windows, which show how she chose religious items over trinkets. Eadburgh chooseth the religious life. How she secretly washed the nuns' clothes by night. Eadburgh serveth her fellows. And the ornate shrine which ultimately housed her bones. The saint worketh miracles.